The stars had watched Earth for 300 years. Not with wonder, not with curiosity. They watched with patience. The kind of patience a vulture has when it circles above a dying animal. The Galactic Council had discovered humanity long before humans knew they were not alone. They found a species that killed its own kind over invisible lines drawn in dirt. They found creatures who burned forests and poisoned rivers. They found a world at war with itself, and they smiled, because a species that destroyed itself was not a threat. It was an opportunity. Ambassador Turek of the Villani Collective had given the same report for decades. His species had no mouth, but they communicated through vibrations in the air. Every year, he stood before the council and said the same words. Humans are loud. Humans are violent. Humans will kill themselves before they ever reach the stars. We simply need to wait. The council always agreed. 12 species had been erased from existence by the Great Armadas. But humanity? Humanity would do the job themselves. It was only a matter of time. Then the silence came. Captain Yuna stood on the observation deck of the orbital station called Horizon's Edge. She was 42 years old. Her hair was cut short. Her uniform was simple and dark. She had served in 3 different wars before the nations of Earth had finally agreed to build this station together. She remembered the arguments. Korea wanted one design. America wanted another. China refused to share their technology. Russia demanded more seats on the command council. It had taken 15 years just to agree on the color of the walls. Now she watched the last. Commercial broadcast flicker and die on the main screen. A cooking show from Japan. A football match from Brazil. A news report from Germany. One by one, they all went dark. Commander Tay walked up beside her. He was younger than Yuna by 10 years, but his eyes looked older. He had seen things during the Pacific conflict that he never talked about. He held a tablet in his hands, and his fingers were shaking. It is confirmed, he said quietly. Every nation has agreed. Every government. Every military. Every corporation. Yuna did not look away from the dark screens. When, 6 hours ago, the final signature came from the African Union. They were the last holdouts. Tay paused. Captain, do you understand what this means? Yuna understood. For the first time in 10,000 years of recorded history, humanity had stopped fighting. No wars, no conflicts, no disputes. Every border became meaningless. Every old hatred was set aside. Earth had not found peace. Earth had found purpose. The aliens, Yuna said. It was not a question. Tay nodded. The intercepted transmissions were shared with every world leader. They all saw the same thing. They had been watching us, waiting for us to destroy ourselves. He swallowed hard. They have done this before. 2 other species. They wait until a civilization collapses. Then they move in and take everything. Yuna finally turned to look at him. And what happens when a civilization does not collapse? Tay did not answer. He did not need to. Far away, on a world that humans had no name for, the Galactic Council gathered in their great hall. It was a massive structure, carved from the bones of a dead moon. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the chamber. They had ruled the galaxy for longer than Earth had existed. High Chancellor Morvex sat upon his throne. He was ancient even by the standards of his kind. His body was like a tree that had learned to walk. His eyes glowed with a pale blue light. He had ordered the destruction of 3 species during his time as Chancellor. He felt nothing about it. They were weak. They were threats. They were gone. Now he listened as Ambassador Turek spoke with obvious fear. The humans have stopped broadcasting, Turek said. His vibrations were unsteady. All of their signals have ceased. Their satellites are still active, but they are transmitting nothing. Their military channels are encrypted beyond our ability to decode. Their civilian networks are completely silent. A murmur passed through the council. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly shared the same expression. Confusion, concern, fear. Chancellor Morvex leaned forward. They have destroyed themselves at last? No, High Chancellor. Torek's form seemed to shrink. Our orbital observers confirm that human cities are intact. Their population is stable. Their military forces are not engaged in combat." He paused. "They are not dead. They are simply quiet." The murmur became a roar. Representatives shouted questions. Some demanded answers. Others demanded action. Morvex raised one ancient limb, and the hall fell silent. "In all my years," he said slowly, "I have never seen a species stop fighting itself. It is not in their nature. Conflict is survival. War is evolution. A species that stops fighting has either achieved perfect peace, or—" He did not finish the sentence. Ambassador Torek finished it for him. "Or they have found a common enemy." The words hung in the air like poison on Earth. In a bunker beneath the mountains of Korea, General Day reviewed the final reports. He was an old soldier. He had fought in wars that most people had already forgotten. He had buried friends and enemies alike. Now he stood in a room filled with officers from every nation on Earth. American generals stood beside Chinese admirals. Russian commanders shared tables with European strategists. Old enemies who had spent decades planning each other's destruction now worked together with perfect coordination. Dr. Hannah entered the room. She was small, with glasses that were always slightly crooked. She was the leading expert on alien biology, though until 2 weeks ago, that expertise had been entirely theoretical. "The probe data is confirmed," she said. "They have been watching us since before we had electricity. They have files on every war, every genocide, every act of cruelty we have ever committed." She pushed her glasses up. "They were waiting for us to finish ourselves off." General Day looked at the map on the wall. It showed Earth surrounded by stars. Somewhere out there, a fleet was being prepared. He was certain of it. "Then we have a lot of work to do," he said, "and not much time to do it." Outside, the sky was clear and full of stars. Earth was quiet. But it was not the quiet of death or surrender. It was the quiet before the storm. The Volani probe was the most advanced piece of technology the Council had ever built. It could travel faster than light. It could hide from any sensor. It had mapped 1,000 worlds without ever being detected. It vanished 3 seconds. After entering Earth's orbit, Ambassador Torek received the news in his private chamber. His entire body went cold. The probe had not been destroyed. It had simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, sending back data. The next moment, nothing. He sent a second probe. It lasted for seconds. He sent a third probe with enhanced shields and backup systems. It lasted 2 seconds. By the time the fourth probe disappeared, Torek had stopped counting. He gathered his notes and walked to the council chamber with legs that felt like water. The High Chancellor listened to his report in silence. The other representatives did not interrupt. When Torek finished speaking, the Great Hall was quieter than it had ever been. "They destroyed our probes," Chancellor Morvex said slowly. "The humans. The primitives who still burn dead plants for fuel a century ago. They destroyed technology that took us 10,000 years to develop." "Yes, High Chancellor." Torek wished he could disappear. "We do not know. The probes sent no data about any weapon systems. They simply stopped." Torek's vibrations became weaker. "It is possible that we have underestimated their capabilities." Our representative from the Keith Dominion rose to speak. The Keth were warriors. They had conquered half a galaxy before joining the Council. They feared nothing. "This is impossible," the Keth representative growled. "We have monitored Earth for 300 cycles. They have no faster-than-light travel. They have no energy shields. They have no weapons beyond simple explosives and radiation devices. They are primitives." "They were primitives," Torek corrected gently. "We do not know what they are now." The argument continued for hours. Some demanded immediate invasion. Others suggested more observation. A few quietly recommended leaving Earth alone entirely. In the end, Chancellor Morvex made the decision. The subjugation fleet would be assembled. 1,200 warships. Enough firepower to crack a planet in half. It was the same fleet that had silenced the Vorn Empire. The same fleet that had ended the Crystalline Hive. The same fleet that had never lost a single battle. We will remind these humans of their place, Morvex declared. They are insects. Loud, violent insects, and we will crush them as we have crushed all who came before, the council agreed. They always agreed with the chancellor, but some of them, in the quiet of their minds, felt something they had never felt before. They felt doubt. On Earth. General Day stood in front of a window that looked out over the ocean. Dr. Hannah stood beside him, reviewing data on her tablet. The fourth probe was faster, she said. Our response time is improving. Lieutenant Minho's team brought it down in under 2 seconds. Not fast enough, Day replied. If they send a ship instead of a probe, 2 seconds might be too slow. Hannah nodded. She had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. She had written papers about first contact. She had imagined 100 different scenarios. None of them had looked like this. General, she said carefully, may I ask you something personal? Day turned to look at her. His face was hard, but his eyes were tired. Ask, are you afraid? He considered the question for a long moment. I have been afraid many times. The first time I held a weapon. The first time I saw a friend die. The first time I gave an order that sent men to their deaths. He turned back to the window. But this is different. This is not fear. This is clarity. Clarity. For the first time, there are no politics. No borders. No lies. Every human on this planet knows the truth. We are not alone. We were never safe. And the only way we survive is together. He almost smiled. I have wanted this my entire life. Not the danger, but the unity. The purpose. Hannah understood. She felt it too. Every scientist she knew felt it. The petty academic rivalries were gone. The competition for funding was gone. Everyone was working together, sharing data, building solutions. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The council will send a fleet, she said. Our analysts are certain. I know. We have less than 6 months to prepare. I know. Anna put down her tablet. General, I need to show you something. It is classified above my level, but I think you should see it anyway. Day raised an eyebrow. You are willing to break protocol? I am willing to do whatever it takes. She pulled up a new file. 3 weeks ago, a construction team in Antarctica discovered something under the ice. They were building a new research station when their equipment hit metal. Not rock. Metal. The image on her tablet showed a massive structure buried deep beneath the frozen surface. It was not human. The design was wrong. The materials were unknown. It had been there for a very long time. An alien ship, Day said quietly. Not just any ship. A warship. Based on our initial analysis, it crashed on Earth approximately 12,000 years ago, long before our recorded history. Hannah zoomed in on the image. General, the technology inside that ship is centuries ahead of anything we have, and we have been studying it in secret for the past 3 weeks. Day stared at the image. 12,000 years. The aliens had been watching Earth for 300 years. But they were not the first to visit. Can we use it? He asked. We are trying. The engineers believe they can adapt some of the systems. The power source is still active. The weapons are damaged but repairable. Hannah met his eyes. It will not be easy. It will not be fast. But it is possible. Day nodded slowly. The universe was vast and full of dangers. Humanity was small and young and fragile. But they had something the Council did not expect. They had 12,000 years of alien technology waiting to be unlocked. And they had a species that had spent its entire history learning how to fight, how to survive, and how to win. Get me a transport to Antarctica, he said. I want to see this ship for myself. Outside, the stars watched Earth with patient eyes. They did not know that Earth was watching them back. They did not know that humanity had stopped being prey. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Jin was 17 years old when he first heard the aliens. He was sitting in his small room in Busan, surrounded by wires and circuits and old radio equipment. His parents thought he was wasting his time. His teachers said he should focus on practical skills. But Jin loved the silence between the stars. He loved searching for signals that no one else could hear. That night, he found one. It was not music. It was not a voice. It was a pattern, a sequence of sounds that repeated over and over, mathematical, precise, impossible to mistake for anything natural. Jin recorded the signal. He studied it for weeks. He told no one, because even at 17 he understood something important. If the aliens were watching Earth, they were not doing it to make friends. That was 40 years ago. Now Admiral Jin stood on the bridge of the Silent Wrath. He was 57 years old. His hair was gray. His hands were steady. He had spent 4 decades preparing for this moment. The Silent Wrath was humanity's first faster-than-light warship. It was built using technology from the crashed alien vessel in Antarctica. It was built in secret, in caverns beneath the ice, by teams of engineers who had sworn to tell no one. Not their families. Not their governments. Not anyone. Jin had led the project for the past 20 years. He had watched the first prototype explode. He had buried 17 engineers who died during testing. He had solved problems that should have been impossible. And now finally the fleet was ready. 300 ships. All built in silence. All crewed by volunteers who understood the cost of failure. Lieutenant Sora walked up beside him. She was young, barely 30, but she had already proven herself 100 times over. She had been the first pilot to successfully complete a faster-than-light jump without losing consciousness. She had trained half the fleet's navigators. She was the best officer Jin had ever known. "Admiral," she said, "the fleet is in position. All ships report ready." Dean nodded. Through the viewport he could see the other ships. They were dark and sleek, designed for war. They looked nothing like the rockets and shuttles that humanity had built before. These were weapons. Pure and simple, the Council fleet? He asked. "They will enter our solar system in 6 hours. Our scouts have confirmed their numbers. 1,200 warships. Support vessels. Troop transports." Sora paused. "They are bringing an invasion force. They expect to find a primitive species huddled on a single planet. Out." Jin almost smiled. "They will find something else." Sora hesitated. "Admiral, may I speak freely?" "Always. Many of the crew are afraid, not of dying. They accepted that risk when they volunteered. But they are afraid of what happens if we lose. Their families, their homes, everything they love." She looked at him with steady eyes. "How do you deal with that fear?" Jin was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his parents, who had died never knowing what their son had accomplished. He thought about the engineers he had buried. He thought about the billions of people on Earth who had no idea that a fleet existed to protect them. "I do not deal with it," he said finally. "I carry it. Every day, every hour. The fear never goes away. But I have learned something over 40 years of carrying it. Fear is not weakness. Fear is weight. And weight makes you stronger if you learn how to carry it." Sora considered his words. Then she nodded. "I will tell the crew." "Tell them something else," Jin said. "Tell them that I have been listening to alien signals since I was 17 years old. I know how they think. I know how they fight. And I know one thing that they do not know about us." "What is that?" Jin turned to face her. His eyes were calm, cold, certain. "They think that our violence is a weakness. They think that our history of war makes us fragile and divided. They are wrong. Our violence is not a weakness. It is a skill. We have been practicing war for 10,000 years. We have fought in deserts and jungles and frozen wastelands. We have fought with sticks and stones and nuclear weapons. We have killed each other by the millions." He paused. "And now, for the first time, we are fighting together. The Council has never faced a species like us. They have never faced a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to destroy." Sora felt a chill run down her spine. Not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like hope. In the hours that followed, the fleet made final preparations. Weapons were checked. Systems were tested. Crews said quiet prayers in a dozen different languages. Captain Wu. The commander of the fighter squadrons gathered his pilots for a final briefing. They were young. Most of them had never seen real combat. But they had trained for years and they were ready. "You all know the mission," Wu said. His voice was calm and steady. "The enemy outnumbers us 4-1. They have technology that we do not fully understand. They have experience that we cannot match." He paused. "But they have never fought humans before. They have never faced people who would rather die than surrender. They have never seen what we are capable of when we have something to protect." Pilot Nari sat in the front row. She was 26 years old. She had joined the secret program 5 years ago, leaving behind a family who thought she was working on a research station. She had not spoken to her mother in 3 years. She might never speak to her again, but she was not afraid. She was ready. "We are the first line of defense," Wu continued. "We are the shield. We are the sword. And we are going to show these aliens what happens when they threaten our home." The pilots cheered. It was not loud. It was not wild. It was the sound of people who knew exactly what they were about to do. On the bridge of the Silent Wrath, Admiral Jin watched the countdown timer reach 0. "All ships," he said quietly, "prepare for battle." The fleet moved forward, toward the edge of the solar system, toward the enemy that was coming to destroy them, toward the fight that would decide the fate of humanity. Earth was silent behind them, but not for long. High Commander Vorix had destroyed civilizations. He had burned worlds. He had watched entire species beg for mercy before he erased them from existence. In 200 years of service to the Council, he had never lost a battle. When his fleet entered the human solar system, he expected to find primitives, scattered, afraid, easy prey. He found hell instead. The first wave of human ships appeared from nowhere. They did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They simply attacked. Vorix watched in shock as 3 of his forward cruisers exploded in seconds. The human weapons were unlike anything in his databases. They cut through shields like paper. They moved too fast to track. "Impossible," he whispered. "They are primitives." His tactical officers screamed warnings. More ships were coming. Hundreds of them. Small and fast and utterly without fear. Admiral Jin watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Silent Wrath. His voice was calm as he gave orders. "Move the 3rd Squadron to flank position. Concentrate fire on the enemy flagship. Do not let them regroup." Lieutenant Sora relayed his commands. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Every ship knew its role. Every crew understood the plan. This was not the chaotic warfare that humanity had practiced for millennia. This was something new, something refined, something deadly. "Their shields are weakening," Sora reported. "The modified plasma weapons are working." Jin nodded. The weapons had been adapted from the crashed alien ship, Dr. Hannah, and her team had worked for months to make them compatible with human systems. Now those months of work were paying off, but the Council fleet was still powerful. They were still numerous, and they were beginning to adapt. "They are changing formation," Sora warned. "They are trying to surround us." "Let them try," Jin replied. "Signal Captain Wu. Begin Phase 2. The fighter squadrons launched from their carrier ships like swarms of angry insects. They were tiny compared to the massive Council warships. But size meant nothing in space. Speed meant everything. Pilot Nari led the assault on the enemy flagship. Her squadron numbered 20 ships. By the time they reached their target, only 12 remained. She did not think about the pilots she had lost. She could not afford to think about them. She pushed her ship forward, weaving through a storm of enemy fire. The flagship was enormous. It was covered in weapons. It was supposed to be invincible. Nari aimed for its engines. "All fighters," she said into her communicator, "follow my lead. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. No hesitation, no retreat." Her squadron followed. They struck the flagship like lightning. Explosions bloomed across its surface. The massive ship shuddered and began to slow. On the bridge of the flagship, High Commander Vorax felt his world shaking apart. His screens showed red warnings everywhere. His crew was panicking. His shields were failing. How is this possible? He demanded. How are they doing this? No one could answer him. He had studied humans. He knew their history. He knew they fought wars over religion and territory and pride. He knew they killed each other constantly. He had assumed that meant they were weak, divided, broken. He had been wrong. He watched a human ship ram directly into one of his cruisers. The human vessel exploded on impact. So did the cruiser. The humans had sacrificed themselves to take out a single enemy ship. That was when Vorax understood. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to survive. They were fighting with the desperation of a species that knew there was no retreat, no surrender, no mercy, and desperate creatures were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. On Earth, Dr. Hannah watched the battle through satellite feeds. Beside her, Commander Tay and Captain Eunice stood in silence. The images were delayed by several minutes, but they could see enough. Human ships were dying, dozens of them. But Council ships were dying too, and the humans were not stopping. They are not retreating, Tay said quietly. Not a single ship has tried to retreat, Una nodded. She knew why. They had all discussed it before the fleet launched. If the humans lost this battle, there would be no second chance. Earth would be destroyed. Humanity would end. Every pilot, every officer, every crew member understood this. They had volunteered anyway. Look, Hannah said suddenly. She pointed at the screen. The Council flagship was breaking apart. Its engines were gone. Its weapons were silent. And surrounding it were dozens of human fighters, still attacking, still fighting, in space. Pilot Nari watched the flagship begin to crumble. Her ship was damaged. Half her squadron was gone. But they had done it. They had killed the beast. All surviving fighters, she said, regroup at point 7. We are not finished yet. The battle continued for hours. The Council fleet outnumbered the humans 4-1. But numbers meant nothing when every human pilot was willing to die. Numbers meant nothing when every human ship was a weapon aimed at the enemy's heart. One by one, the Council ships fell. Some tried to retreat. The humans did not let them. Admiral Jin had given clear orders. No survivors. No witnesses. No one could be allowed to report back to the Council what they had seen. When the last Council ship exploded, the human fleet fell silent. Not from exhaustion, from shock. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had conquered galaxies. They had won. Admiral Jin stood on his bridge and looked at the wreckage floating in the void. 1,200 enemy ships destroyed. Not one had escaped, but the cost was high. Nearly half the human fleet was gone. Thousands of volunteers would never see their families again. The victory was real, but so was the grief, Lieutenant Sora Jin said quietly. Send a message to Earth. What should I say, Admiral? Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. Tell them we are still here. Tell them humanity survives. Tell them the war has just begun. The message traveled across the stars. To Earth, to families waiting for news, to a species that had spent its entire existence fighting itself. Now they would fight something else. The news reached the Galactic Council 3 days after the battle. Every ship destroyed. High Commander Vorax dead? The greatest military force in galactic history erased by a species that should have been primitive. A species that should have been easy? Chancellor Morvex sat on his throne and said nothing. Around him, the council chamber was filled with chaos. Representatives screamed at each other. Some demanded revenge. Others demanded retreat. A few simply sat in shocked silence. For the first time in 10,000 years, the council was afraid. We must send another fleet, the Keth representative roared. A larger fleet. We must crush these insects before they grow stronger. With what ships? Ambassador Torek replied. His vibrations were weak, defeated. The subjugation fleet was the largest we had. Building another would take decades. And the humans are not waiting. Our scouts report that they are already expanding. Already building more ships. Then we negotiate, another representative suggested. We offer them a place in the council. We give them what they want. They destroyed 1,200 ships without trying to communicate, Torek said. They do not want to talk. They want us to understand that we are no longer safe. The argument continued. It went around and around, reaching no conclusion. Chancellor Morvex listened to all of it. His ancient mind tried to understand how this had happened, how a species that had been killing itself for millennia could suddenly become the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. He had underestimated them. They all had. And now they would pay the price. 1 week after the battle, a single ship appeared at the edge of council space. It was small, unarmed. It carried no weapons. It broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. I am Yoon, diplomat of the United Earth Government. I request permission to address the Galactic Council. The request was granted. Not because the council wanted to listen, but because they were too afraid to refuse. The ship landed on the council homeworld. Yoon stepped out alone. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple white uniform with no decorations. She carried no weapons. She showed no fear. The council guards escorted her through the streets. Citizens of 100 species watched her pass. Some looked at her with hatred. Others looked at her with curiosity. All of them looked at her with fear. She walked into the Grand Assembly Hall as if she belonged there, as if she had walked those halls 1,000 times before. The representatives fell silent as she approached the speaking platform. Chancellor Morvex looked down at her. He was ancient, massive, powerful. He had ordered the deaths of billions. He had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and he was afraid of this small human woman. You have come to beg for mercy, he said. His voice echoed through the hall. You have come to offer surrender, Yoon smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something that everyone else did not. No, she said simply. I have come to deliver a message. She placed a small device on the platform. It projected an image of Earth. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, a beautiful world, a living world. For 300 years you watched us, Yoon said. Her voice was calm, clear, unafraid. You watched us kill each other. You watched us suffer. You watched us struggle. And you waited. You waited for us to destroy ourselves so you could take what was left. She paused and looked around the hall. Every eye was on her. Every representative was frozen. You have done this before. We found the records. We found the graves. 12 species that you erased from existence. 12 civilizations that you crushed because you thought they were threats. You called yourselves the rulers of the galaxy. You called yourselves the keepers of peace. Her voice grew harder, colder. You are not keepers of peace. You are vultures. You circle above the dying and wait to feed on their remains. You told yourselves that this was right, that this was natural, that the weak deserved to be destroyed. She deactivated the projection of Earth. The hall fell into darkness. We are not weak, she said. We never were. You saw our violence and thought it made us broken. You were wrong. Our violence made us strong. 10,000 years of war taught us how to fight. 10,000 years of suffering taught us how to endure. 10,000 years of struggle taught us that nothing is given. Everything is earned. She looked directly at Chancellor Morvex. Her eyes met his, without flinching. You sent 1,200 ships to destroy us. We sent them back as dust. You thought we would crumble under pressure. Instead, we united for the first time in our history. You thought our chaos made us weak. Instead, it made us adaptable, unpredictable, dangerous. The silence in the hall was absolute. I am not here to beg for mercy. I am not here to offer surrender. I am here to deliver a message from every man, woman, and child on Earth. She reached for her device and projected a new image. The human fleet. 300 ships had left Earth. 170 had survived. But behind them, in shipyards across the solar system, New ships were being built. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. "We are awake now," Yoon said. "We are united now, and we will never be quiet again." She let the image hang in the air. "You have two choices. You can leave us alone. You can stay on your worlds and never threaten Earth again. Or you can come at us with everything you have, and we will show you what humans do when we have nothing left to lose." She turned off the device. The hall was silent. Choose wisely. She walked out of the hall. No one stopped her. No one spoke. The representative sat in stunned silence as the small human woman disappeared. Chancellor Morvac sat on his throne for a long time after she left. He thought about the 12 species he had destroyed. He thought about the power he had wielded for centuries. He thought about the future. For the first time in his long life, he did not know what to do. Outside, Yoon boarded her ship and began the journey home. Earth waited for her. Blue and green and alive. The stars surrounded it like an ocean of darkness. But Earth was no longer afraid of the dark. Humanity had stopped being prey, and the universe would never be the same.